been southbound, I've been hellbound, riding on the midnight train. Going too fast now, think I'll slow down, standing in the pouring rain.
What's up, guys? We're back with another episode of the One Hell of Life Outdoor Podcast. And we got a new segment that we launched last week that we're going to be starting here right at the beginning. And then we have another new segment that we're going right into at the end of the podcast.
That's right.
That you'll have to hang around for. That one was a hit the few times we've ran it so far. It's called Listener Question of the Week.
Yep.
And basically we pick a listener at random. Not really at random. We look through the questions we get. And of the questions that we get, the one that's our favorite, we answer it, and you get sent a gift. At this point, it's a koozie. It might be like a hat or something in the future, but yeah, stay tuned
We
for
might
that.
even send you a flower.
Yeah, exactly. And the segment we got to start things with is called What the Duck is Going On, which, as my dad said last week, if you heard, we might call it What the Buck is Going On, you know, if we want to talk about some deer hunting stuff.
That's right. And if we're pissed, we might call it What the Beep is going on.
Yeah. So last week, you heard about my lawn care woes and whatever else. But, man, we just got done with 4th of July. I can't believe it's already July, you know.
America for spacious skies. Let's go, America, especially being a veteran. I mean, you know one thing that's beautiful about all of us Americans? We're so patriotic, right? I mean, we support our troops. We support the liberty that we have, you know, and we fight for it. And, you know, I mean, we've been an amazing country, and here we just had our birth. And to think back that happened in 1776, bro, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
They didn't know what AI was. They didn't know what toilet paper was, probably. But,
They didn't know anything.
But, man, we just hope that, you know, everybody had a safe 4th of July.
Nobody
know,
lost any fingers, hopefully.
That's right. We know a bunch of crazy folks out there, and we know that you guys tested the limits.
Yeah, one of them sitting right across from me.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I just don't test it quite as much as I used to because we'll leave it at that.
Old age.
That's right. That's right.
Wisdom.
But, man, no, super happy about that. And, I mean, really, put your hand on your heart every once in a while and just say thank you. Because, you know, somebody brought this up to me at a show I was at a convention in Boston. And we were just talking general life stuff. And he was like, man, he goes, imagine if you were born, like, in a village in the middle of the Congo. I mean, that could totally happen, right? I mean, that's where it all starts with being lucky. And I mean, we're all born into luck. You did nothing except the people before you did a lot to make sure that you could be here as an American today and listening to the One Hell of Life podcast.
Yeah, I saw something today that made me be like, wow, that's a real eye-opener for how fortunate you should feel. It was a video where the guy asked him, he said, hey, you know, if I were to give you $10 million, would you take it? And the guy goes, well, yeah. And he replies and goes, well, there's one stipulation. You don't get to wake up tomorrow. And he goes, oh, well, I wouldn't take it. And he's like, so what you're saying is your life is worth more than $10 million. And every day you wake up, you should be like, oh, I feel like $1 million. Because, I mean, it's just one way to phrase it. You know, I mean, there's no amount of money that's worth, you know, being able to wake up. So,
you know what, I will say on that note, you know, all of us are programmed different, you know, all of us. And, you know, me, just like all of us, we all have something that we need to work on or something that, you know, we're not as good as somebody else, or whether it's physically, mentally, all these things, right? And one thing that definitely God built in me that I'm so super thankful for is, like, bro, my mom would be like, you can't leave before the sun goes up. She goes, how am I going to know where you, and why would you want to go walk in the woods before the sun comes up? And I was like 7. I mean, I just wanted to experience every minute of daylight.
Yeah.
You know, so anyway, good
so,
point, Tristan. That's some good stuff.
So what the duck's going on, obviously it's a little bit about what we were just talking about. It could be whatever. One thing I did want to mention is the way we're going to structure the podcast, and we kind of talked about this off air going forward, was obviously the 2 segments, one in the beginning, one in the and in the middle. That's when we're going to do our quote, like interview / conversation with the guest. So we'll roll into that. Today we got Logan on, but I'll talk about that in a second and kind of what his background is. But back to what the duck is going on. Really, the biggest news I saw, which I had heard about this, but I just hadn't really came to my attention, I guess, as prevalent until this week, is the whole thing with the teal season in so many states being nine days this year.
Yeah.
Including Georgia, Florida, Arkansas, like any state that we're probably going to teal hunt this year potentially, changing that. And that's, of course, because the blue-winged teal numbers are not quite as prevalent as they've been in past years, which I got no problem with. Again, kind of with what we talked about last week with Devin's question, I'm okay with data-backed decisions anytime that happens.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And let's face it, if you're lucky, unless you have your own land and you're building that kind of habitat for them, if you're hunting public land for blue-winged teal, I don't care where you're at. It's tough.
Yeah.
And our whole saying about blue-winged teal is they're here today, gone tomorrow, right? Yeah. And even when you have the habitat, that happens, But I think the good thing about that is that if you didn't know, and I heard I think it was Dr. Mike Brazier say this from Ducks Unlimited one year. He said the blue-winged teal have like a mortality rate, and I'm going to go low, but I want to say he said 65 to 67% in there, but let's just call it 60%. All right. Just be safe. So if you don't know what a mortality rate means that basically 60% of the population leaves this earth and it gets replaced. So they've got a super high mortality rate, but they got a super high production rate as well, which is great. And like you said, those numbers have been ticking down. So
yeah, no doubt. So, but yeah, that's kind of what we had for what the duck this week. We're sitting here trying.
Wait.
What?
No, that's not what we had left for this week, my boy.
Oh, okay. You got
the dad's got to brag.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Listen, through many promises to many people, friends and family.
Oh yeah. I've been on your ass about this.
I'm back in the gym, baby. I am back, and I'm happy to say that, I can say that there was a time not long ago that I was ripped out, bro, in best shape of my life. And you know what? The back thing happened, and I used it, I just got afraid to work out, and I used it as an excuse. Long story short. And, but man, it felt great. It felt, thanks for going with me tonight. And I just signed up at Gold's Gym. It's real close here. And we were real impressed with how clean it was, how new and the equipment is there.
Yeah, it's a nice gym.
Pretty cool. So, no, I'm happy to get back in there, and it feels good to be back on the podcast, drinking a Busch Light, feeling swole.
Yeah, after you earned it.
Yes, I did earn it.
Well, chest and tricep. Upper body.
I worked chest, triceps, fronts. I forgot what are they called? Not the sides.
Like your delts.
Yeah, I worked them. I worked my traps a little bit, and so I just kept it simple and just trying to get my body going again, I guess.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it felt great though.
Keep it up. We're gonna be we'll be checking in. I'll be asking them every week so we can provide you guys weekly updates to keep them accountable.
That's right. That's right. No, now time's ticking, and if I love everything I say so much, and which really stemmed our whole where one hell of a life comes from, man, if it's not one hell of a life if you're dead.
Yeah.
It's one hell of a death. So that's the mentality I'm taking.
Yeah.
I got to stretch these years.
No doubt. So we're about to roll right into it with our podcast guest this week. We got Logan Archibald. You guys are going to hear that here in a few minutes. But this guy, we've talked on social media for years. He, well, maybe not years, maybe a couple years, but he's a
unique individual.
You see him all on social media, on TikTok, on lives a lot of times. And he from talking to him, I know he was a deer hunting guide for a number of years, so I'm excited to see that. I know he helps film with 810 Outdoors YouTube. And, just a guy that we've been wanting to get on the podcast for a while. So we're going to go right into that, and we'll see y'all in a minute. What's going on, guys? All right, we're back, and we got Logan Archibald on the podcast,
Logan.
also known as, I think, Woody Archibald on social media. But
Heck yeah.
we're excited to talk with Logan. We've been talking about connecting on a podcast for a hot minute, and this fella does a lot of stuff in the outdoors. I know he helps film with 810 Outdoors YouTube. I see that a lot. I know that he was a Texas deer guide for a number of years, and just an outdoorsman through and through, and we're excited to have you on the podcast, man.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. Like you said, you covered a lot of it. Logan Archibald, Woody Archibald on Instagram, Bearded Sportsman on TikTok.
Yeah, that's what
That's how I know you, bro. Okay, so all right, there it is. Boom, click. I get it.
Go by a lot of
He was trying to tell me,
Tristan
was trying to tell me, I'm an older guy, so I don't TikTok as much. And I'm being honest, yeah, I can only do like 2 platforms, and it's Facebook for older people and Instagram for semi-older people.
Yeah.
And and so I TikTok about twice a week. But no, that's where I know you from. All right, cool.
Yeah. So yeah, TikTok is huge. Even though they don't necessarily agree with what we do and how we do things, but
right. But they've changed some.
It's a little bit. It takes a little bit getting used to for what we do as far as what you can and can't post on there. So,
Sure. Sure. We learned the hard way on that.
It's a great networking tool, just like any other social media. But
yeah, no doubt, man.
Anyway, you were saying about man, tell us where you come from, what you do. I mean, Tristan gave you a brief introduction, but that doesn't tell the story.
So I was born and raised in Michigan, hunting and fishing since I could walk, I think, probably before then even. But so grew up in the woods and waters of Michigan, went to college in the UP of Michigan, and then spent 7 years in South Texas guiding mostly whitetail deer, but we did all kinds of exotics and dove hunts and duck hunts and a little bit of everything, but mostly big game and mostly whitetail. And then here in the last year or so, I moved back up here to Michigan and got what we call in the business a big boy job. So, and then on the side, I do a lot of filming for 810 Outdoors YouTube, and me and Josh are good buddies, and he's kind of we're hunting partners and video filming partners.
This summer, make memories on Florida's Forgotten Coast with Williamson Outfitters. From inshore and nearshore fishing to scalping and snorkeling in the bay, plus custom boat tours made for family fun, they've got something for everybody. And when the sun sets, it's time for a nighttime flounder gigging adventure you'll never forget. Small group or big group, day or night, Williamson Outfitters has a fleet of boats and a team of licensed captains ready to take you out. Call or text Captain Chris at 850-251-8650 or visit floridaducks.com. Williamson Outfitters, making the Forgotten Coast unforgettable.
He's dove deep into the YouTube stuff here this last year since we've been doing it together. So
that's great, man. And what took you down to Texas originally?
It was just a random thing. So I went to school for wildlife management, and while I was at school, I did some work with Forest Service and different government agencies, which is kind of the path you go if you get a wildlife management degree. And doing that kind of stuff in the summers and whatnot, I just
I'm jealous of what you learned during that. I mean, honestly, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good.
I'm impressed by that, because every time I hear about like the student side of hunting or that part of it, like where people get to learn like the biology and everything involved from that base, I'm like a big fan of. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I think, school is school. I think they have a pretty clear objective, and it's not to make you a biologist. It's to further your education even farther, going to masters and doctorates, right?
Right.
So that's kind of the whole process of college.
Sure.
In school is pushing you on. But I did learn a lot, and coming in with it more debunked a lot of stuff I thought I knew, right? you know, or made me question things I thought I knew growing up hunting and stuff. And you kind of see things from both sides now, having that background and being out in the field and doing stuff, hunting and fishing.
No, I think that's a really good point, because like I haven't talked to, I don't even know, probably 8 or 10 different biologists on this podcast, and then talking to obviously a lot of hunters too. I think hunters have the tendency to like kind of give people involved in the game and, you know, management of game like a really hard time because of certain regulations or changes.
Oh, dude!
But like they don't really realize.
Source.
Yeah, they don't really realize why these decisions are made, and like 90% of the time, the people that are making these decisions are outdoorsmen themselves.
Dude, they spend more hours a week, or more hours a year than you could even probably dream of, because they love it so much, and that's why they got. In most cases, now there's some bad hires here and there, but anyway, sorry.
Right, and that's you know, kind of my opinion on that is, a lot of the people that are actually making the decision aren't those people that are in the field doing the work and stuff. You know.
Well, that's where you got to respect programs like Delta Waterfowl, that they're heading these kids off and getting them involved when they never even hunted before. So
there's tons of good programs out there. You know, NWTF, Delta, Ducks Unlimited, CCA for fishing side of things.
Yep.
You know, there's all kinds of that kind of stuff, nonprofits. But I think the disconnect between the hunter and the regulatory side of things is, you know, one, it's kind of just human nature to question authority, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that part of it, and then a lot of times these people that are the head of, say, your state's natural resources and stuff aren't necessarily those outdoorsmen, you know.
Which, by the way, I agree.
They're a politician.
I agree with you on that.
Exactly.
I agree with you on that point. I'm talking more towards like your biologists and you know,
your guys that are in the field, guys and girls that are in the field.
Yep.
For sure. But I got I did that kind of side of things with Forest Service and stuff, kind of in the summers while I was at school, and decided pretty quickly that I didn't want to go that route. So wrapping up school, I just kind of, Texas A&M has a really good job board for all things natural resources, I guess, a better word to put it. But so I was just on there and scrolling through, and these internships and this and that were popping up on Texas game ranches, and so I just started applying to them. Like, hey, that'd be cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So got one of those and interned for a year at a place, and then bounced around to a few other places, both guiding and, you know, kind of working year round down there. So you do a lot of habitat work and just kind of maintenance work on the ranches and stuff throughout the summers when it's not hunting season. And then did that for about 5 years, and then decided I just wanted to guide full time, you know, and not do the off season work necessarily down there. Kind of put in the off seasons in Michigan, where it's a little better climate in the summer, and you know, just kind of enjoy some summer and work part of the year. So then I strictly guided for 2 years. And it was awesome. Like it's one of those things, if you have the chance to do it, go do it. Like you don't ever feel like you're working. Yeah. A lot of the days guiding and working down there, you're working from before sun up until after sun down. But again, it's not like it doesn't feel like work. You're hanging out with buddies, essentially.
Right.
You know, almost everybody, obviously there's bad apples, but almost everybody I ever hunted with, I mean, I called them friends by the end of the trip, you know?
That's cool, man.
So,
and not to get, like, if you had more to go on about, feel free to do after this question, but because definitely curious about that. But I'm curious, you know, coming from Michigan, going into Texas, and like learning to guide deer there. I mean, we were kind of talking off air. It's just a completely different animal. You know, can kind of speak to that a little bit about, you know, if there's anything deer behavior or anything just like that, you're like, wow, this is so much different than Michigan.
Oh, that's a great, good stuff. Good stuff. Justin, great question. Yeah, dude, talk a bit on that because.
Absolutely. You know, so Texas is majority high fence places, which I admit it myself. I had a bad bias against high fence before I went down there because
sure,
high fence ranches in Michigan and a lot of places are, you know, a few hundred acres where they're breeding deer, kicking them out and shooting them that season type of deal. So a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth with high fence. But down there, a lot of the places, not saying there isn't places that do that, but a lot of the places are, you know, 5, 7, 10,000 acres. So a lot of those deer don't really ever see a fence in their life.
Right.
They're essentially wild deer in most of those places. But yeah, the biggest thing is, and where I was at in South Texas, because supplemental feeding is such a big thing, the body sizes aren't that dissimilar. But a lot of places in Texas, it changes drastically. You know, you go to the hill country, and you're seeing, you know, mature bucks that weigh 170 pounds. So comparing that to a Michigan deer, which is, you know, 200 plus pounds at 2 years old.
Yep.
That was kind of the biggest thing. Deer behavior wise, a deer's a deer. I don't think it matters where you're at in the country a whole lot, you know. A deer is going to do deer things. They're worried about 4 things: food, water, safety, and reproducing.
Right.
You know, that's pretty much all that their brain ever thinks about. So I don't know if that changes anywhere in the country or anywhere in the world. So the biggest thing, like I said, was the body size and learning how to age deer accurately isn't really the right term, because there's studies and stuff out there that even doing the tooth analysis, it's only like 70% accurate within a year. So, but educating myself on actually properly aging deer was kind of one of the biggest things, because growing up in Michigan, if it was, you know, an 8-point, it was probably getting shot and harvested.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, and let's think about that for a minute, because it's very similar to Illinois, is that you could have an 8-point, and Tristan's experienced this. You could have 100-inch 8-point walk up on you. That is the bull in the area, bro. Like,
Yeah.
for real, like dressed 200 pounds, a little badass. He's just never going to have the rack, but he's going to go around bullying everybody. And you know, we all see it. Like, if you look at any northern picture of deer, you know, I'd say from Illinois up, is you get that fat girth, big gut, you know, and when you see those legs start getting stiff, bro, it's time. And which leads me to my question is, what would you pick the 3 most important things you look at immediately to age a deer?
So where the neck meets the body is one. So without getting into a ton of detail, once a deer reaches, say 3-year-old, because a lot of places in the country, deer don't really get the chance to get older than 3.
Georgia.
So like a 3-year-old buck, where that neck meets the body is a big one. You know, at 3 years old, that deer is going to look like an NFL linebacker. You know, just a big bulky neck. You know, younger than that, he's kind of got that skinny neck where it meets the body. It's kind of skinny in the body. At 3, it starts to all merge into one. After that, you know, the back, you know, you can start to see that sway back after they get to, you know, 4 or 5 years old. And the length of legs is a big one, which, like I said, it depends where you're at. Obviously, you get these northern deer, and they're going to look shorter as a 2-year-old than a southern deer looks as a 2-year-old, right? Just because the makeup of the body. But once they start to reach that 3, 4, 5, you can really look at, and they look proportional, if not short. So that's kind of the three. Three is a real low number. You got to kind of put everything together, though. Like, just behavior wise, it does play a role. A lot of the old timers, I say old time, a lot of the old timers look at tarsal glands. I am not as big on that, but you can tell a little bit from tarsal glands. But yeah, that neck is one of the biggest, I would say, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, my stepdad that was deep into bow hunting, he always just used a couple like general things. And he said, look at a quarter horse, right?
Yep.
When you look at a quarter horse, if you're trying to kill a mature deer, if it resembles a quarter horse at all, pass. Pass it. And then the stiffness of the legs. Those back legs start to stiffen up. They just do.
And they start to walk like old men. Because they, their joints are starting to get sore and everything else. But yeah, and all that being said, if it's a buck and you're hunting a buck and you're happy with it, take the shot, right? Like
That's right.
I won't ever
shoot
judge
the spike.
anyone I won't ever judge anyone for shooting any buck because
it's in the teens that morning, and maybe you're chasing ducks or geese. But now it's September and it's 85 degrees and you're hunting early teal or geese. As a waterfowler, you need dependable weather protection that will not break the bank. Founded in 1996, Frog Togs is not only the leader in breathable wader technology, but a company you can depend on to keep you warm and dry, head to toe, no matter your hunting environment. Stay bone dry by using discount code ZD315 for 15% off not only your first purchase, like most discount codes, but how about every single purchase you make from now until December 31st, 2024?
As long as they're happy with it, that's all that matters.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I've shot like 3 spikes in the last 3 years, and I'm just like, it'd be nice to shoot something bigger than that, but
yeah, and that's one of those old wise tales. Whatever everyone, all the old timers are shoot the spikes, and now there's guys out there saying, well, no, don't shoot the spikes, do this and that, and that's one of those. That's a pretty big point of contention in the deer hunting world at the moment anyway, is whether or not to shoot spikes. And what it comes down to is what are you looking for out of your deer herd as a whole, because that spike's got just as good a chance as that 1-year-old 6-point or 4-point.
That's actually been proven.
Yeah.
To be, that whatever buck, 130-inch buck, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So if that's all you're looking for, great. Don't shoot your spikes. We did pretty intensive culling on one of the ranches I was at, and the results were pretty undeniable. But we weren't looking for those 130 to 150-inch deer down there. We wanted those 180 pluses.
Oh.
So we would shoot every
It's a
spike.
heavy rack for a small deer.
It
really is.
Those deer at 4-year-old deer, those were dressing out at 200 plus pounds. So
no shit.
Well, he was saying the supplemental feeding and all that where he was at.
Okay, fair enough. Right.
You know what I always find interesting about Texas deer is just like all my life, like when you see a Texas deer's rack, you instantly know because like they have. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong here,
dude.
but they have these like the way they're like bladed points of their.
They got to be a
are.
subspecies in some way.
Yeah, like all of them have this bladed point like deal going on.
Yeah, there's definitely a Texas look.
Yeah, they don't hold the mass, but they have like a shit ton of points and spread.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of them are widespread, tall tine, kind of look to them. And it's, and a lot of that is down there. You can kind of manipulate your genetics a little better than you can on a population of deer here in Michigan.
Let me ask you this. Sorry. Let me ask you this, man. So for years, and I'm going back to like when people started showing Texas, the Realtree crew would go down there, and I can't think of the old gentleman's name down there, but he's been running a hell of a ranch down there for years and stuff. And I remember when Texas showed up on the map, like, holy cow!
Yeah.
There's some big deer shot down there, right?
And that was probably early '90s.
Yep, for sure.
And
for sure.
and it was every cover. I remember, looking at covers of
that Milk River, Montana.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Anyway, what was the question to that?
No, it's just that. So what you see as a commonality is it shows that they are so respondent to rattling specifically. I mean, I see so many people hunt them in the hill country, in the brush and stuff, off the ground, and just threw up a brush blind, rattled the shit out of them, and here they come. I mean, is that just a stereotype, or have you seen that success personally?
No, it's definitely a higher percentage of you get a response to rattling down there.
I wonder why that is.
I think a lot of it is the Buck-to-doe ratio.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, say here in Michigan, I don't want to throw out numbers and be wrong on numbers, but there's 5 to 10 does per buck here, on any given block. So those bucks don't have to fight, don't have to go out and search for that doe when those does are in heat. They don't have to be on the move as much, and they don't have to do all the air quote rut activities because there's just does everywhere.
Do you think Texas just generally as a whole, by tradition, has done a good job of doe management? Is that what it is?
I think Texas throughout the last 30 years should be the model for deer management.
They're gonna, and you know what? And they eat them. All right?
Yeah.
I mean, those deer get eaten. And but that's an interesting trend that I've never thought about. Like how that varies. Like we always talk about how hunting's different in every state, no matter what you hunt, Tristan. But what about a trend like that? That's something I've never thought about in my life.
Yeah. I think, like I said, it's all the way at it, with TPW, Texas Parks and Wildlife, like I said, my lifetime, at least the last 30, 35, 40 years has done an excellent job at not just deer management, but everything wildlife management wise.
Interesting. Very interesting.
To other states. Yeah. It's a different world down there for sure. And things, which is a lot of it is I can't say that. Legislative. Yes, I can't get that one out today. You're allowed to do so much more as far as management tools.
You're allowed to do a whole lot of shit in Texas that you can't do anywhere else.
Yes,
which is great.
Yes, yeah. So most places down there are under a MLD permit, which is a managed land deer permit. And to qualify for that, you have to do so many things. A lot of it is, you have to survey your deer herd every year and get obviously it's not an exact number, but a pretty close to exact number of how many deer you have on your property every year. And then the state biologist actually works with the ranchers and landowners to come up with a harvest plan for that property. Whereas I don't know if there's any other states that do that.
Well, I wonder if the reason, it's got to play a role in that is I know Texas is compared to other states, such a predominantly privately owned state. So it's kind of to justify some of the jobs of these resource guys, it's kind of they got to play a bigger role in helping with private lands than states that have a lot more public land,
Absolutely.
No, contemplate this. All right. If, like you said, Tristan, there's so much land that's privately owned in Texas. What does that have to say? I'm just opening up an argument point, something to think on, is what does that say about private ownership versus public land ownership altogether. I mean, not public land ownership, publicly ran ground. What I mean by that is, I'll give you the simplest example I can give you. In the state of Illinois, to catch a bass, all right, if you go to a pond on a state park, right? You go there,
Yep.
dude. I don't remember what the specifics are, and my Illinois friends remind me just because I haven't lived there for a few minutes. But it's something silly like you can't keep like small bass. All right, they have to be like over 14 inches or something like that. All right.
Yep.
Here's the problem with that. You keep catching the big ones. The little ones just explode in numbers. Bill Dance has proven this, and take over the pond because all the little fish get all the bait fish and all the big fish go, and that's just what happens, right? So here's my point on that. You take Bill Dance's philosophy, and it's a proven philosophy. You can just research it anywhere on how to manage a lake or a pond, right? How many fish you need to take a month, all that stuff. And he's talking about bait fish, bass, bluegill, whatever. This is very similar to that when I'm thinking about this, is that here you got so much private land owned in Texas, and these guys are doing a great job with it, and it's a killer buck-to-doe ratio. Here we say, oh, well, you can, before you shoot a buck, you have to shoot a doe, which is a lot of states. I just don't think they're going about it the right way. And I think I don't know. It's just, I'm just throwing that out there for thought with everybody.
Yeah. And that goes back to what we kind of started with the disconnect between the public and the wildlife divisions,
Maybe we get too analytical on the biological side of numbers. I don't know. I'm not going to speak on that. I'm not a professional in that. But I mean, obviously their goal is the same as us. We want to protect our wildlife and maximize opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Because
so
anyway.
So to use your example, I mean, is catching bass out of a pond, I don't know for sure, but maybe the state's looking at it like, well, as long as we have people catching fish, they don't care whether it's a big fish.
Great point.
Or that little fish.
That is a great point, bro.
Yeah, because that is, there's more opportunity to catch
for that little boy to walk up or girl.
Yeah.
To catch a fish, and they don't care how big it is.
And that's, like I said,
that's a great point. I love that you brought that up.
It all kind of goes back to that disconnect between hunters and anglers and government.
Yeah.
A lot of times I don't always agree with, regulations and whatnot. Obviously, I don't think anyone 100% does, but I think the intentions are good more times than not.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Now, I think.
Now, that being said, Michigan just made it so youth season this year, youth can only shoot does. They can't shoot a buck, which I wholeheartedly disagree with that one.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So
all right, I'm going to shut up right now because I'm pissed. I'm literally pissed, but I'm going to use that piss to go research it.
And you're not the only one. It's just, I don't know, and it stemmed from bad apples, essentially. A lot of hunters were complaining that these dads and stuff were going out and shooting the big bucks with their kid. The dads were actually shooting them instead of the kids, missing that 2 weeks before regular season.
No, dude, there's no way that the bad people are higher numbers than the good. There's just no way.
Exactly.
It's just like dude, most people are good. That's just a fact.
But that's kind of where it stemmed from, and then like you're telling me if I take my kid out and that 8-point buck walks out, I have to tell him no.
Right.
Dude, that's a great way to say you don't want to hunt no more. I'm not surprised.
Well, I'm not even going to take my kid out at that point because I don't want to tell him no and have him have a bad experience, especially if it's his first time out.
You can't win a championship and get a trophy. I mean, that's basically what it is. Like, here you won the championship, but you don't get nothing.
Yeah, so
that really, that's really a bummer, man. Because so many dads too so many dads would love to see their kids shoot a bigger deer than they ever could.
Dude,
you know what I mean?
Especially when you're at that age, you get more gratification out of seeing somebody else harvest an animal.
Every year you see it somewhere. 12-year-old shoots like
A giant.
rival to the state
Bro.
record. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was this little girl I saw shot a 200-inch deer with a bow. I was like, bro, put her on the front page of every slinging hunting thing ever.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what a great thing.
So
I look in the comments, people are like, I bet it was high fence. Bro, I don't give a shit what it was.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
If a 12-year-old girl shot a deer with a bow legally, that is an amazing feat. If she shot a deer, period, it's an amazing feat.
Yeah.
Right. and that is one of the bigger issues I think hunters we're facing right now is the rivalry within.
Yes.
It's all about, well, you shot it with a rifle, you should shoot it with bow. Or you shot it with bow, why didn't you shoot it with a traditional archery? Or you shot it in high fence. It's not, we're all on the same team is how I look at it. Like, we should be hyping everybody up on every harvest.
Absolutely, man. No, we've talked a lot about that. And I mean, like on the turkey side of it, talking about the whole, what's it called? The new style with the fans.
Oh, reaping, yeah.
All right, so people are against it. People are against water swatting ducks. And somebody complained about that one time on a post, and I go, so I guess you're against shooting a deer that's standing still.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, seriously, bro.
Well,
I mean,
the reaping thing in particular is kind of weird because it's like, on public land, I mean, I would like maybe out west where it might be different, but in the southeastern part of the United States, you're not going to reap a turkey on public land. They're just too pressured. So for one, like, let's just say that's a truth.
Not the traditional style.
Yeah, and if
you're saying, we've experienced it.
Yeah, no, like you're not going to just be able to do that. So, in terms of the run and gun, scoot and shoot decoy thing, but if you got public land or private land and can do it, then who cares what you do if it's within the law,
Bro, this same stuff. And listen, folks have been around, and you've been around a minute, Logan, I believe. How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
I'll be 37 in September.
All right, so 37, you're old enough to remember this. I remember when, maybe you're not. I'm so old. But I remember, and I got taught by a guy that's been bow hunting deer since it was legalized in Illinois in the 60s. Can you imagine there was a time when they shut down deer hunting in Illinois? So that happened. He was part of the state committee to get it reapproved. So this is the guy I learned from, right?
Right.
Dude, can you imagine a time when you didn't even see a deer track?
Yeah, that was like something.
Can you imagine that?
I mean, I'm not where I'm at in Michigan specifically, but the Upper Peninsula is starting to be like that. I don't know if you remember back 40, 50 years ago, but the Upper Peninsula of Michigan was
not good. It was not good.
It was the spot to go if you wanted to big deer.
Yes.
In Michigan, everyone has their deer camps up there, everything.
It was a sleeper cell. That's what it was.
And now the deer herd is dwindling so much because of this, that, and the other. We won't get into that kind of stuff because that goes down a big rabbit hole. But now guys are just like the deer camp experience up there is just going away.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you what, man. So imagine this, and this is where I was going with talking about, not even to be able to hunt deer in Illinois. I remember sitting in camp with my stepdad and my mom, and you've heard me talk about my mom. And Logan, I won't bore you. My mom was on the front page of Buckmasters as America's best lady bow hunter at one point. So, yeah, she was pretty cool chick. Point is that we're sitting there, and I won't forget, it was on a Friday night, and my stepdad and my mom at the time were like in their 40s, and I'm a teenager, and I'm just slicing deer, dude. I mean, I don't care. Whatever. I'm killing them all. If it's brown, it's down. And we had a couple young guys, Dwayne and Kevin, shout out to you guys, that were innovative. They were addicted to deer hunting, and they knew where we were hunting at. they were kind of like, I would call them like pre-Cam Hanes. Right?
Mhm.
I mean, these guys were obsessed and physically fit, active, all this stuff. And they walked into the house that Friday night, and as soon as they opened up the door, they said, bet, 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 bet. Walking in the door, and my stepdad goes, what in the F is that? He goes, it's a grunt call. He goes, for what? He said, for deer. Bullshit is what he said. He goes, bullshit. He goes, I've been hunting. At that point, let's see, he had to have been hunting 35, 40 years
Right.
in the tree. Here's what's crazy. He said he never heard a deer say that, or a deer do that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to go take it the fast forward. He ended up believing in it. He tried it with his mouth. Actually, he said, before I try the damn deer calls and spend money on them, I'm going to try and make it with my mouth. So he would go, bleh. And he goes, I'll be son of a gun. That deer came right in, and he said he shot it 15 yards. So he became a believer in it. You know,
Yep.
So at that time, there were people on the left side, I guess I'll call it, that were like, that's cheating.
Yeah.
Just like the whole turkey thing we're talking about.
Mm,
So what you were getting at is that everybody takes a different avenue. So is using a cell camera cheating?
Right.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Well,
So,
that's-
and I've talked about if you're getting bored with what you're doing, change what you're doing. That's what's great about hunting. You can take it
Right.
at any avenue you want to.
Yep, and that's the cell camera is kind of the hot topic these days, obviously, with states starting to regulate it and whatnot. But yeah, no, and I don't know when it started, why it is. When did it become a competition between us
Yeah.
at who's a better hunter because of this, that, or the other?
Right.
You know, it doesn't matter.
No.
It never has mattered. We all want the same thing. At the end of the day, you know, we all want to enjoy the outdoors, have the opportunity to harvest an animal, and most of us anyway want to eat that harvested meat.
Right.
Yep.
You know, so that's what it comes down to. Why does it matter how you go about it? As long as it's legal and ethical, it doesn't matter.
I think some
Well
of those
said,
people are
bud.
missing the message of what you're trying to pursue.
I think the vast majority are missing the message.
Yeah.
And it's sad, and that I think will be the downfall of hunting if we don't change those ways.
Now, on the flip side of that, I will say this, and we don't have to go down that hole, but if you guys pay attention to Ted Nugent and watch the hearings he's had with the state of Michigan regarding
Yep.
baiting deer, it's bullshit, really. I mean, he calls it out, and there's a whole, I'm not just trying to say just what Ted believes is right. I'm just saying that just because it's a law doesn't mean that it's right. Okay.
And
Like he's saying, like, what's the difference in me putting a pile of corn at 25 yards or you saying, oh, you can build a 1 acre thickest, beautiful corn little plot right under your tree stand? It's the same damn thing, you know? So anyway,
I don't know. Maybe you can like shed some light on this, Logan, and not put you on the spot if not. But
no, absolutely.
I would think that just outside looking at it, if I'm playing devil's advocate, I now granted we hunt over corn in Georgia. Never did my whole life in Illinois, but you can in Georgia, so we do. But you know, I would think, you know, there's that whole debate about corn that goes bad, then like
That's a concern.
deer getting sick, turkeys getting sick, whatever. So there's that whole thing. And then also, I do see the perspective. I don't know if this has anything to do with the state's opinion, but I see the perspective of it being kind of cool to like plant a food plot and shoot a deer off of that natural food plot. And of course, the corn isn't going to go bad. The whatever you got in that field isn't going to go bad. But just playing that side of the fence on it, I mean, I get those two things. I don't know if that has to do anything with it or not.
Yeah, no, corn going bad is 9 times out of 10 that corn's not going to be there long enough to go bad.
Mm.
You know, like the deer, turkeys, raccoons, squirrels, everything else is going to eat it. You know, unless you're putting a 10 by 10 pile out at a time, right?
Right.
You know, if you're putting a 50-pound bag out, that's going to last.
Do you want coffee that doesn't suck? Get the Duck. Dirty Duck coffee is made specifically for the waterfowl enthusiast. Enjoy flavors like Morning Wood, Dark Dynasty, Cinnamon Teal Snickerdoodle, and First Flight to unlock the flavor that you'll enjoy in the blind for years to come. Our friends at Dirty Duck Coffee Company are now offering all Zero Duck 30 followers a 15% discount when you use code ZeroDuck15 on your next order.
A week, maybe in most places, you know, so I don't think going bad is as much of a concern as now their big concern, I say there as in states and regulatory agencies, is the CWD stuff. Which I have quite a bit of experience with it now. When I was down in Texas, it was, you know, the hot topic, and it was happening down there when I was down there. Which, so, you know, state's perspectives on that is, well, if they're at a bait pile, they're licking and nudging and this and that with each other. But anyone that knows deer behavior, they do that
all the time,
all day, every day anyway. They're communal animals. They're licking, sniffing, nudging constantly. So I'm agree with that portion of it. I also, you know, if I was honestly, if I was targeting a big trophy mature deer, 9 times out of 10, I would not be hunting it over bait.
Right. They're not going to come to it.
They wise up to it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I was just talking to my buddy in Illinois about this the other night because, you know, he's hunting private ground up there, but and is trying to target mature deer, and you can't bait, obviously. And I was just telling him about the perspective down here. I'm like, dude, it's not like you just set up corn and these big bucks are going to come to it, because they just, like you said, they wise up to it, and everybody and their brother on every property around here does the exact same thing. So, and the reason I came to that conclusion, I thought maybe during the rut they might come by like to check, which they might still do that. I thought, you know, that would be the case, but from watching our cell cameras all year for a whole year, this is the first year we used them, and kind of gave me a new perspective where I'm like, dude, even with that, like, they're still hardly ever coming out in the day. Like, they just always are. Yeah, the nice bucks are nocturnal.
And they may be coming by to check, you know, that corn pile, but they're going to stay, you know, 200 yards downwind in that brush line or in that fence line or out of sight anyway. They're winding it and using their sight from a distance. They're not going to come all the way in 9 times out of 10. Not saying you can't shoot a big deer over bait, because it happens all year, every year during hunting season. But just personally, if I was targeting an individual mature buck, I wouldn't be hunting over bait more than likely.
Yeah.
But that is, I don't know. That's the bait thing. I don't think will ever be not a point of contention. Just because it's the easiest thing for them to take away.
Yeah.
As far as what you can and can't do while hunting. So
yeah,
that's something that'll always be a battle in every state. Now, also, you know, supplemental feeding, baiting, I see them as different things. You know, corn's great if you want to put a pile of corn out and see deer under your tree stand. If you want to actually help those deer, corn is probably one of the worst things.
Yeah, it's like them eating like donuts or something, right?
Yeah, there's very little nutritional value to a kernel of corn to a deer.
Oh, dude, put some beans out there.
Well, and the other thing we talked about the other night is, I was telling my buddy, like, you know, when the acorns are dropping, like that corn, there will be deer that will show up, but it's not near the traffic that you see like early season or post acorn drop. When the acorns are dropping, they're not dumb. They know where the food or the protein and fat content is.
Yeah, and their
bodies desire it, just like we do.
They're lazy. It's not, you know, if they can go 4 steps to eat some acorns instead of going 40 yards to that pile of corn, they're not going to go into that pile of corn.
Right. Yeah, no doubt.
But back to the competition thing. Outside of the reaping stuff in the turkey world, I think turkey hunters are kind of the best group of hunters as far as realizing we're all on the same team.
Mm-hmm.
I've always enjoyed turkey hunting, but the last several years I've really dove into turkey hunting. It's probably my favorite thing to chase at this point. And just that community there's a lot more good than there is competition within, I think. So shout out to turkey hunters, I guess.
I wonder why that is, I mean, I wonder if it's like, I think, and I'm just like throwing some mud at the wall here, but like, deer, it's such a big thing with antler score and all that kind of thing. But like with turkeys, it's kind of like, yeah, there's the spurs and the beard and all that, but really everybody's kind of just out for like a mature bird. It's not so much like, oh, wow, I got to have 1.25 inch spurs. That's cool. But I mean, what do you think why that is?
Yeah. I think that's a lot of it because, turkeys kind of essentially max out on their trophy potential.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas deer, it's basically unlimited.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just a hunter mindset thing too. I think the hunters think there's a lot less trophy deer than there are, mature turkeys type deal. So it's a little more competitive nature inherently.
Mm-hmm.
When, maybe I have this 100 acres to hunt here in Michigan, but Jim has 100 acres on the other side of it, and Bill has 100 acres on the other side of that. So, inherently, there's probably only 1 or 2 trophy bucks in those 300 acres.
Right.
Whereas turkeys, depending where you're at, obviously, but there's probably 10 or 15 mature turkeys in that same 300 acres.
Mm. And do you think? Well, I guess when it comes to harvesting a mature buck, I guess it's kind of different. The only thing I was just gonna say is like with turkeys, obviously you hear so many people that go like legit turkey hunters. I'm not talking to people that do like paid stuff out of state and
right.
do that whole thing. But the people that like, let's say they just hunt their state and they are avid turkey hunters, they'll be like, man, I haven't shot a turkey in 4 years. I mean, and the calling aspect and how challenging it is to hunt it. Maybe there's like which I know mature white-tailed deer are very hard to hunt as well, but it's like, I just wonder if because turkeys are so hard to hunt, maybe it's kind of like, oh yeah, nice, man, you got one. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's just, I don't know how to explain it. It's just different mindsets. And obviously we're all hunters still at the end of the day, but I don't know if you ever gone to the NWTF convention or any of that stuff, and it's
unfortunately not. I want to.
Like even there, like it's a big expo, obviously, but you have call makers and decoy, and everybody. There's no competition within the industry. Even like
mm-hmm.
everyone realizes there's enough to go around for everybody. There's enough business in selling turkey calls, and there's enough business in selling turkey hunts or whatever you're trying to sell.
Mm-hmm.
And so like in the deer world, everything's kind of top secret and this is our way to do it. You better buy from us kind of deal. And turkey guys are, oh no, that guy over there, he makes a great call as well. This guy over here, so it's just a different mindset.
Well, I find it interesting to hear you say that. I don't know, and fill me in on this, afterwards, or not after the podcast, but I mean after I ask this question. But that's one thing me and my dad have talked about with the duck hunting expos is it's almost like, at least from our perspective, at the expos, I know duck hunters within themselves, especially on public land, can, there's the fist fights and all the bad stuff, there can be that.
Yeah.
But for some reason on those expos, we've always got the vibe too, and we've talked about with several people, it feels so communal. Like everybody is so like, it's always such a good time. And it's kind of the same thing as what you were saying about turkey to deer. My dad's made the same point about turkey to ducks. I don't know if you feel the same way or not, but
Yeah, no, I mean, duck hunting, like I said, obviously it gets very competitive,
Mm-hmm.
public land wise anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Even private land for that matter. But
Yeah, true.
but outside of like the competitiveness for hunting spots, I feel like it's very communal as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna race to this hole, or I'm gonna show up the night before so I get that hole. But end of the day, if you pull up beside me and want to hunt, am I going to be a little upset if you're 50 yards away and shooting swing birds? Yeah, obviously. But
Right.
the first thing I'm going to do, and I feel like a lot more duck hunters will do, is walk over to that group and say, "Hey, you want to just join together and hunt all together and not screw each other over here?"
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but it's just it's a weird thing that kind of is only in the deer community, I guess. It's uber competitive, which social media hasn't made any of this any better. But I don't know. It's one of those things you can't really explain, and I don't know if anyone ever will. But I'm hoping we can all start being one big happy family here before
Right.
long.
That's right. Or I'm going to run around beating ass because I'm getting tired of it. And you know what? I will say this though, just from the outside looking in as an older fella, growing up before social media and all that stuff, I have seen a movement in the last, I don't know, 5
to 10 years.
5 to 10 years on a positive trend. And I like what I'm seeing. And I love the influence that most of us out there, just like Luke Bryan's song says, right? Most people are good, and that is the truth. Whatever you see on TV or whatever, your brain is going to recognize whatever you allow that garbage can in. There's a book back whenever I was younger, like probably in my mid-20s. It came out. It's called Being Happy. It's still available. It's a small book with big print, and for somebody like me to read that was very difficult, all right, because my ADD span is terrible. I never was a book reader, but that's the thing I always remember is that your brain is like a garbage can lid, and you got to protect it, man. And you can get influenced every way, right, from false media to whatever it is. But what I love about the younger generation is they're starting to be great bullshit callers, right? They are starting to call bullshit on stuff that is incredible, which is great. And
it's definitely getting better for sure. And,
it is.
And it's, you said it pretty good, but you have to have the wherewithal to be able to see the bullshit.
Yep.
And be like, well, yeah, no, that's just somebody doing it for the likes or for the engagement.
That's
right. I'm guilty as charged on that account because I posted a video of a deer hunt the other day, and it wasn't a great shot. It was back. It ended up being liver, and I posted it because I knew people were gonna come at me for it.
But it's reality.
But yeah,
exactly. That's how that's my perspective.
Yeah, it's like Devin, our buddy, that posted a video on that bad shot.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I told him, I said, dude, that is balls.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the only way I like to put it. And I said, good for you, because it had an educational impact, application to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, with our YouTube, that's what we try to, there's it's a flooded market in outdoor media these days with any named website, app, whatever. But so much of it is just highlights of the harvest and this and that. And when we kind of started it, we're like, no, we're gonna show it how it is. So, we'll post duck and goose hunts where we don't harvest a single bird because that's how it is most times than not. Yeah. But we still get, we're still out there having a great time because it's you and your buddies out there BSing and cutting up and doing all that stuff.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's what draws me to waterfowl hunting more than anything is the social aspect of, you're out there with 3-4 buddies, and even if it's not a good day of hunting, it's still a great time.
Yeah. Well, and I love how Katie, Tristan's wife, put it one time. Her first weekend of duck hunting, she just said, I asked her what her favorite day was on the way home, and she said, well, it was this day. And I said, but we didn't shoot that many ducks that day, and we had all kinds of problems. The side-by-side broke down. And she goes, well, that's because I got to sit next to Cade. That's what she said. And because Cade, if you guys don't know him, Cade can cut up a blind like nobody's business. I mean, like I don't have a tenth of his potential. It's like having Bill Burr in your blind.
Literally.
literally. And no wonder, but guess what? When she left that experience, that's what drew her back. That's what drew her back.
That way more than any pile picture of birds.
Absolutely.
And that is the great thing about, like I said, duck hunting and waterfowl hunting in general is you get so much more of an experience because if you have a bad deer hunt, you're sitting in a tree for 5 hours and doing nothing essentially, So a bad deer hunt kind of sucks, right?
Like, it does.
You come back in and like, man, that was brutal.
You feel like you're suffering for that deer,
No, you got this deer pattern. It's going to happen. The wind's right and everything. And then on that specific day that you went out there, it just happened to swirl right there and screwed you up for the rest of the year.
Yeah, and so it sucks when you have a bad day in the deer woods or in the turkey woods, but in the duck blind, I don't know if there's a bad day to be had.
No, there isn't. No, as outside of just like if you're not shooting anything, it's cold as hell, like a polar vortex cold.
Conditions,
that sucks. All right.
Yeah,
it sucks whenever that's where it sucks. But I was gonna
go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say we get plenty of those miserable cold days here, but I mean anymore. If you're hunting out of a panel blind or there's enough modern technology to keep you comfortable on those days at this point.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
There's not too many of those days you're just like,
if you prepare right. That's right.
Yeah, right. So that is the nice part. If you're used to those miserable cold days and are prepared,
that'll learn you. That's what I like to say.
Oh yeah.
Logan, we talked a lot in this podcast about like, you being a guide and we haven't talked a lot, I guess, in terms of your filming and stuff and working with 810's YouTube. But, I think we haven't really talked about like the stuff that you like to do, particularly as an actual hunt, like you actually hunting, because I know when you look at it from the perspective of like filming or guiding, you're not the one getting to pull the trigger. You know what I mean? And I do most of the filming for the stuff we do, and there is that aspect of not getting to pull the trigger. So I guess kind of two-part question, how much hunting do you still like to get out and do and enjoy yourself? And I guess the other part of that question would be, at this point for you is just other people's, is that the enjoyment for you, or do you still like to get out and do it yourself?
It's situational. Like deer season last year, I'm ruined on deer. Mm-hmm. The one place I was working at, we were killing a bunch of deer. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I've already killed my lifetime amount of deer. So like I went out and sat out one day for myself actually hunting last year, deer season. Turkey hunting, I'll chase turkeys. But yeah, at this point, I get just as much enjoyment, if not more, running the camera and seeing other people hunting. And that's kind of the guide in me anyway.
Right.
But I do, I think waterfowl season, I pulled the trigger, which we had a pretty rough year, but I think I probably only pulled the trigger 4 or 5 times.
Wow.
So it's one of those, like I said, I'm at a point where I've done a lot of the hunting myself already, so I really enjoy seeing, especially if you got a kid or somebody new to the outdoors, I enjoy that more than pulling the trigger myself by a mile, you know.
Right.
Like this past season, we took our buddy Corey. He owns Great Lakes Calls. He's in a few of the YouTube videos and stuff with us, and but we took his 6-year-old son out for waterfowl youth season, and he ended up harvesting his first duck, and just the whole experience, the whole morning was great. You know, we were hunting public land, and it was youth and veteran weekend, so it wasn't super crowded, but there was hunters kind of all around us still, and you know, we were setting up, and just the excitement he had all morning leading up to it, and then we got out there, and you know, he's 6, so he can't really, you know, swing on ducks, you know, that are circling and whatnot. So we're like, all right, we're gonna have to let one land, and you can shoot it once it lands. And you know, just after daybreak, and one lands, and he pulls the trigger and peppered it, but it got off and flew. And the first thing he did is, you know, pop his head off the gun. Did I get it? And it was like, no, but it didn't matter to him at that point if he got it or not, really.
Mm-hmm.
So right. Seeing that kind of stuff is what I enjoy more than pulling the trigger for myself at this point. You know, like I said, between Texas and Michigan, I had 30 plus years of 20 plus years of chasing game for myself and harvesting game for myself. And I think that my calling now is to get other people involved and capture other people's, you know, memories out there.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Now we haven't done this in a minute, Tristan. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit. It's something we used to do. Logan, like, what if we had to just put you on the spot and say, what's your most memorable story? What would it be?
I got a couple. So
do it.
A couple I'll never forget, and it was before I started hunting. I'm the younger brother, so I say I always got stuck with mom. Mom's a big hunter, kind of like your mom. She
go.
Hunts, you know, she does it all, and so I you know, my older brother would always get to go with dad. I always went with mom, and we had one spot, and it was gun season here, so where I'm at, it's shotgun only. Now smoothbore rifle, but back then shotgun only. And these deer stepped out, and I was sitting next to her. And to this day, I'll swear that she rested the gun on my shoulder. I don't think she actually did, but you know, it's just one of those that I will never forget. You know, the deer were, you know, 100 yards out or whatever, 70 yards out, and she sit next to me and shot the deer. And like I said, to this day, I'll swear on the Bible that she was resting that gun on my shoulder. But
that's cool.
So that's one.
I mean, listen, that's a very intimate, neat story to me. Because I think we all have those childhood memories if you were lucky enough to be in that position.
And I was super lucky. You know, our family vacations growing up were fishing trips and hunting trips.
Let's go.
You know, so I was very fortunate in that fact. And then the other one I'll never forget was, again, I was, I don't know, too young to hunt still. So 11 or 12 probably, which in Michigan at the time you had to be 12 or 13 to hunt. And they had just taken the hedgerows off the cornfield. And so it was kind of a windy, wet, rainy day. And we sat for a little while. I was with my dad this time. And we sat for a little while, and it kind of got light. And he goes, all right, let's go walk the cornfield. All right. You know, I didn't know what we were really doing, but start walking the cornfield, and, you know, he'd walk a few rows and stop, walk a few rows and stop. And every time he'd stop, I'd, you know, me being a kid, not really paying attention, I'd run into the back of him every time he'd stop.
For sure.
Yeah. You just being a kid, not, you know, I was looking down the rows and he'd stop and I'd walk into him. And finally he goes, all right, stop it. Let's take a few steps back. And, you know, kind of yelled at me a little bit, you know, in that dad voice at least. And I don't know, it was maybe another 3 or 4 rows up, and he stopped and swung the gun and shot a buck that was standing in the cornfield.
Wow.
And, you know, he drops it. He goes, all right. And like I said, I was 10 or 11, maybe 12 at the oldest. And we walk up to it, and obviously we're all jacked up, and he goes, "All right, time to learn how to gut a deer."
Yep. I knew where this was going. Good stuff.
I'm just looking at him like, what do you mean? Like, I have no idea how to do this. And so like, that's how I learned, is just, you just got to do it, you know? And that's very much how especially my dad, he wasn't going to show me, he's figure it out kind of person, which I think is a great way to teach children, honestly. You got to let them figure things out on their own for the most part.
That's right.
But I remember the bad part of that story, I guess, is I went, he rolls the deer over, and I went to start cutting on it, and it still had that little bit of nerves left in it. Like, it kicked. It kicked when I started cutting on it, and it.
I had one do that when I started cutting his balls off.
Yep. That's exactly what it was. And it kicked, and I jumped back. I don't know. In my head, it was 30 feet, but I jumped back and freaked out and was like, "Oh, he's still alive. He's gonna," all that stuff you think when they do that last little kick of nerves. But those were probably, and that, those are a couple of my best memories, and I wasn't behind the trigger then, so it just kind of goes. Maybe that's how I've always been. I don't know.
Bro, what a neat perspective. I want to point this out. You're the first person, and I mean, I don't know how many people we've asked that question to. It's been a lot. And you're the very first person I've ever hear tell some of their favorite stories before they even were a hunter.
Before I was pulling the trigger on anything. Yeah.
What a neat perspective. Thank you for sharing that.
It's been, 25, 26 years at this point, and that it's one of those things I don't think I'll ever forget those two days. And as I sit here, I can see, the little plot of land across the street where we did it. So, it's one of those cool things.
That's awesome.
Unfortunately, we can't hunt that anymore. But it's that little 100-acre piece across the street was very special to me growing up. So
that's awesome stuff, man.
Yeah.
Well, Logan, tell everybody, where people can get in touch with you at. Plug 810's YouTube, and just
I like follow you. Yeah.
So I do have a couple of Instagrams: Woody Archibald, the Bearded Sportsman, Bearded Sportsman on TikTok, Logan Archibald on Facebook. The YouTube is 810 Outdoors. So any one of those, and then both my Instagram and TikTok have link trees in it with everything else. If you find one, you can find it all. One of those, and then there's also a couple of our partners in those trees as well. I know you guys are with Dirty Duck as well, and
oh yeah, good guys.
So we work with them, which I just ordered some more cold brew from them.
Let's go on the cold brew, bro. Look, I know we always plug commercial during all of our podcasts, but the best commercial I can give, Tristan, don't even put the commercial in, is that get the cold brew, bro. Get the cold,
and they just released the cinnamon teal version here.
On the 4th.
Man.
So Jay and Buck are great guys. I've known them for a few years now, and
they are, man, quality individuals, quality,
great people. I don't know too many hunters that don't enjoy some coffee. So
yep.
If you're looking for a coffee brand that is hunter owned, hunter focused, all that kind of stuff, give them a check. But for sure, plug them. They're great people. But there's, like I said, if you find me in one place, there's links for everything else. I do not so much, hunting on TikTok as far as going live on TikTok. It's kind of just me and a bunch of friends on there BSing, everyday life, harping on each other, that kind of stuff. But feel free to come. Feel free. We'll talk hunting anytime you want on there, but feel free to stop in and say hi and this and that. And, I'm an open book. If you got questions about anything, if any of that kind of stuff, let me know. I'm here to help. I want everybody if you're not a hunter, I mean, I don't know how many people a year I offer to take out hunting, just to get them started. So
That's great.
and not as like a come hunt with me as a guide, just like I'm not going to charge anyone anything. Just let's go enjoy the outdoors.
That's awesome, man. The more of that we can get, the better. And I talk about that point a lot. It doesn't, and I no doubt this is why you feel this way, but it doesn't, I don't take for granted that like I had a privileged life in terms of somebody to show me the outdoors and to like give me hand-me-down stuff and to take me out and I can't even tell you how many of my friends that my dad's helped get into hunting because I've been like, yeah, man, come hunt with us. And he's always like, whatever, come on, bring him. It's great stuff.
Well, and let me tell you that from a father's perspective real quick. It was my duty, based on how I got taught, to teach Tristan. I didn't go to Tristan and go, hey, I'm doing a recruiting experience with your friends.
Right.
What I said was introduce them to it. And not that he didn't want to, but he wasn't at that stage as a hunter because he was so new to the sport, right? It was like, if I teach him this for the rest of his life, that's going to be ingrained in him. And that's the way I looked at it as a father, it's like, it's my job, not his job, because I'm still here. Like, listen, the older you get, you just don't get to do as much as you do. You don't have the energy you have. You have aches and pains and all these other excuses, I guess, you can come up with. But when we empower, that's the key word here. When you empower people, and it doesn't have to be your son or your daughter, it has to be somebody that you just, like you said, man, I just want to get out and show them the sport. And then we empower them from there, and I just want him to know that I felt the responsibility to teach these young people. Just like I remember your best friend, Devin, the first time we took him crappie fishing. Guess what? Now he's a deer addicted psycho.
Yeah.
All right? But it honestly started with crappie fishing, experience in the outdoors.
Yeah. And honestly, just like 2-second thing about him, not to cut you off, Logan, but I'm in the market for a new bow, and long story short, I was telling him about these bows I was looking at, and he schooled me for probably 5 minutes the other day about just these like specs and all this stuff, and I'm like, dude, he's so ate up with it. Like, I love it.
Isn't it cool?
Yeah,
to see somebody more like, you're like, you haven't been hunting half the time I've been, but you're such a psycho.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I've used that, honestly, like, if I'm being honest, like, I've used it as an advantage as an older guy, is that it's kind of like the big buck, right? You let the young guys chase the does, and then you walk up the last second and you make it happen, right? Because you know how to cut it all off. I kind of feel like I'm doing the same thing with these young guys. You young folks teach me so much. I love it.
That's not that you did it for that reason, but that's kind of the winnings, if for a lack of better words, is now that you did this for them, now it's their turn to do set up the decoys or do this or that for you.
And they don't even know they're doing it. They're just psychotic. They just love it so much, and I'm like, divorce is going to happen. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just me. But definitely balance. But no, I love it. And that's the thing. I mean, I just love seeing these young people and even older people, man. I see it.
Yeah, no, age doesn't matter. But, and I don't know how many times I've talked to people that are like, oh yeah, I'd love to go hunting, but I don't know anybody or I'm afraid to do it.
Yeah.
I tell them that there's nothing to be afraid of.
Yeah.
Well, what if I mess up? You're going to mess up. It's not if, right? Like, even the best hunters mess up. So, like, wipe that off the board and just go out and do it. Like, go out and put the time in. Whether you have somebody to take you or not, just go try it. Go sit in a tree for, a day and see what happens. And then more than likely, you're going to turn into that addict. and want more of it constantly.
Ain't that the truth, man? Well, I think that's well said, and I think that's a good little point to hang our hat on with this podcast. And Logan, we just appreciate your time, man. We had a great time talking with you.
Oh, you're gonna be back on.
Yeah, just honestly, just learning a lot from you, from deer stuff in particular, but just getting to hear your perspective was awesome, and we just appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah, man. And
Yeah, man.
personally, I'm sorry, Logan. I just want to give you this. I mean, I was thinking this as we've been going through this whole podcast, and that is, man, I learned so much tonight, and thank you for blessing me with that, man. I mean, you've been fortunate, and thank you for what you do, and man, it's always a pleasure to hear from people like yourself. I mean, it's just, you got great roots, you've got great demeanor, you love the sport, and that's what this is all about, man.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys having me on. And that's, end of the day, if I can help or educate one person on one little nibbit of information, that's my goal in life at this point, is just to kind of be there and help. So I appreciate you guys having me. Thanks for the listeners for sticking around and listening to us yap for a while here. And
That's right.
That's right. Good stuff, man. That's what the podcast's all about, man. Just being real and sharing true life experiences and education and promoting the sport. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, man. Have a great night. Thanks, Logan.
Have a good one. Thanks, guys.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, so I hope you enjoyed that podcast with Logan.
Dude, that was fun.
It was a good time. And as promised, we're going to hit you with the next segment we have here to kind of wrap up the podcast, but it's our listener question of the week. And this week we got Trey Shirley is the listener question we're going with. And fortunately, we've been able to hunt with Trey.
Yep.
Through me and my dad's
Family,
step cousin.
really?
Yeah, he was on a trip last year that we had a pretty good time on. And his question this week was, what's the best way to improve your success rate? And I know he's a big duck hunter, so I know he's more or less probably talking about ducks. But, I think we want to kind of take it as a full encompassing
It applies
thing. Anything.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. First and most important thing, you can't get the ball rolling without scouting.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. Listen, if you are a new person getting into any hunting sport, any fishing, anything, I don't care what it is, honestly. I mean, survival, building a house, it doesn't matter what it is. Dude, you have to do your research first. And so in hunting, we call that scouting. And you've got to do that. And that is like, let's break down scouting. You got to know your animal very well. So knowing your animal very well, do biological research on it. Go research that animal, learn about how they breed, when they breed, what, all those things. Learn it from that side. But then it's about sign, right? It's about the sign in your area. You got to do, if it's duck hunting, if it's deer hunting, if it's coyote hunting, if it's pig hunting, it doesn't matter. You got to be able to look for that sign and scout. And you're essentially using the scouting to put yourself in the best position to harvest that animal.
Yeah. Now, I think the other thing I would add to that is no matter what you're doing, whether it be, wing shooting or whether it be archery or shooting a gun or whatever, is making sure, you're proficient with whatever you're doing, or as close to it as you can be, whether it be calling ducks, doing the best you can to, mimic that decoy spread and call the way you heard them calling and just try to sound like a duck. Or,
pattern your gun.
Yeah, and then when it comes to your equipment, just understanding or just being as proficient with your equipment as you can, accurate and all those things. And wing shooting, there's a lot more that goes into that, leading a duck, and just I think that's just kind of an experience in the field thing in some aspects. But I think the two main things, like you said, would be scouting and just knowing your equipment and being proficient with it and using using your time, doing things to make your time spent there more impactful.
Have you
Put
ever
yourself in the position to be successful.
Right. Have you ever had a boss, no matter what you do, say to you, focus on the activity, not the results?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're trying to tell you to do. And what is so rewarding about that is if you focus on those activities, when the results happen, you're going to cry like a baby. It's such a gratifying process that you sometimes go, I can't believe I put myself in this. You're so grateful for the opportunity, whatever it was, whether you shot a limit of ducks, whether you shot your first deer, whatever it was. It's the work that you put in. I mean, let's face it. The best analogy I can use, if you go out and build something with your hands, I know men, I'm not trying to take away from women because women are this way too, but stereotyping, most men feel pretty good about the shit they built. You know what I mean? Whether it was a junk piece or not, they're like, I built that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So that's the cool thing and to go by is I just think it's really those two things. And when we're talking about what's most important.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, guys, we appreciate you tuning in to another episode of the One Hell of a Life Outdoor Podcast. If you wouldn't mind, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And
Tristan,
tune in next week to another opportunity to get your question listed on this podcast. I'll put out a post probably the day or two before. Just be on a lookout on our Instagram and all that good stuff for the prompt to ask that question. So,
dude, Outlook, check this out. We've got some really cool podcasts coming up. You guys, have you seen Japu Outdoors? You're like, who is Japu Outdoors? Who's got this motion decoy with Dr. Duck sitting there going, bro, this is legit. All right. We're going to have Carson on. It's going to be a great podcast. We also got another podcast coming up with somebody that has been involved with duck hunting in Arkansas since they were a baby. They've been a guide. They're one of the best people we know, honestly, and honestly, one of the luckiest people I know. If you want to know why some people have so much success, you're going to have to listen to this podcast because he is the epitome of a great person, a good Christian man, a dad, a teacher, and a waterfowl hunter. Colton, we're proud of you, buddy, and we can't wait to get you on here.
Well said. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in, and it's one hell of a life.
I've been southbound, I've been hellbound, riding on the midnight train. Going too fast now, think I'll slow down, standing in the pouring rain.